This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring defense attorney, Hidden Killers daily contributor, and host of the Defense Diaries podcast, Bob Motta.
Lots of interesting testimony in the recent days in the Maya Kowalski case. One of the psychologists, I believe, or therapists, Betty is her name, she gave some testimony that revealed her presence was constant and at times invasive, when even taking photos of Maya in her underwear and admitting to listening in on sensitive conversations with family members or legal representatives. A lot of people raising their eyebrows at that, rightfully so. Her answer as to why, she says that those directives came directly from the Department of Children and Family, and it was her job to make sure that everyone complied and adhered to its stipulations of Maya's initial symptoms. It was an interesting watching that deposition of her, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that she even testified to doing and some of the statements from Jack Kowalski in this. Is this a case where the system and bureaucracy and people just follow the leader? And there was a lot of people that were following Dr. Smith, who initiated all of this, and just do what she says, do it. She must know what she's doing. She's at Johns Hopkins. And it just turned into literally imprisoning a little girl for 90 days. And obviously the horrific results of that with her family and such.
Yeah, so that gal that was deposed, and we were actually discussing it on Law and Crime yesterday.
Yep.
Like, we were covering that case for the whole 2 hours I was on. And I think she was actually a social worker.
Okay.
And I kept trying to figure out why at trial that they were using the video of the deposition as opposed to her being there in person.
Yeah, that I found kind of odd.
It's strange. Like, I like the producers, everybody was trying to figure it out, because I kept asking the question. I'm like, but you can use video deps, because sometimes they're used if like people are unavailable as a witness, meaning a lot of times that's if somebody's at death's door and you're concerned that they're not going to make it all the way to trial, you'll go in and ask the court if you can do a deposition. And the court will say, yeah, go ahead. And if that person ends up passing away and doesn't make it to win trial, then you can use the video deposition, because it's sworn testimony, right?
Yeah.
So, but I don't get the sense that she's passed. I don't know why they were using it, but yeah, it was fascinating testimony, and it really kind of laid out what's been going on in that hospital. I think a lot of what you said is spot on, man. I think that this was a doctor came in and made this preliminary finding, and you've got mom, who's also Beata, who's also a registered nurse.
Yeah.
And has been taking care of her daughter her whole life, and including when she was diagnosed with her disorder. And this ketamine treatment becomes the thing, and the dosage amount, that becomes the issue. And when you have Beata sitting there yelling and screaming, why are you ignoring me? This came from a different hospital. This diagnosis and this dosage is what they told us that she needs to be taking in order to allow her to live without constant pain. And the doctor, and so she's screaming and yelling about it. And so the social worker starts to get the concept of, is this like a Munchausen's by proxy type situation going on with this woman? Why is this woman trying to force feed her kid all this ketamine when the doctor's saying it's not the right dosage amount? And it's like, in her testimony was so fascinating, because she kept trying to push all the responsibility off on risk management and Child Protective Services. I think it's called DCF for out there, I think is what it is.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
When she's like, they're the ones that were making the decisions. They were but the rebuttal to that is, well, but they're basing on what you're saying.
Yeah.
Risk management isn't going down there with eyes on her. Children, DCF isn't going down there until they've been notified, and then they're sending their own people, but they're basing their investigation on what you're telling them. You're a social worker.
Yeah.
So she was a very powerful witness for the plaintiff, because remember, this is a civil suit. It's not a criminal case.
Yep.
Very different burden of proof. It's preponderance of the evidence. It's like the 51. You got to cross the 50-yard line. That's it.
Yeah.
Whereas the burden in a criminal case is you got to get to the goal line. You don't necessarily have to cross it, but you got to get to the goal line.
Yeah.
So it's a much higher burden in a criminal case. So, man, she was something else. When it's like, and then you kind of look into her background, and she had some things from in her background where she had been fired for being abusive to kids back at this, I think it was a foster home that she worked at.
Mm-hmm.
And where she's putting her knee in kids' backs, and like she had picked up charges. I don't know that she was convicted of them, but I know she lost the job. So she's got some stuff in her background that makes you question her credibility somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
But just in terms of like the system and the way that it operates, and for this type of thing to happen when you've got a mother who knows her child more than anybody else. And beyond that, they tried to move her. They tried to get her out of Johns Hopkins, and they couldn't get her out of there. It's like once she got stuck in the system, they're like, she literally, like you said, was like imprisoned in there.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advanced access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial free.
So you can binge on true crime
Until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.